spreading, how do I say this? We're spreading all this throughout the area, and I know we know the answer to this. Has it gotten worse in the last 2 years? It's a stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyhow.
There's no question that's stupid, right?
Yeah.
Just the unasked question. Mr. Van Drew, it has exceeded anything that we could have ever imagined. We've had more than 600,000 people come through Yuma since this administration took office.
So we get this administration in, they make you just do a lot of paperwork. We don't protect our people. We don't protect our Americans. Things have gotten worse. Cost to the hospital. And again, I know you said it, but I want everybody to really think about this. Is anybody helping?
No.
No, doctor, they're not.
No, they're not.
And you know what? When you go in with your maternity and your maternity patients, guess what? It's the job, and they're doing a good job, of health professionals and nurses. They have to take care of the people that are sickest first. That's just the Hippocratic Oath. They've got to take care of those people. But guess who's waiting with their children? Guess who's waiting with their families? Guess who's paying for all of it? You know the answer. Am I correct, doctor?
Yes, you are.
Am I correct that your nurses had to go out and buy safety seats for these people because we used so many in the last big tranche of folks that came over, and they went out and the hospital had to pay for them, and they had to go everywhere in the area to buy safety seats because they didn't have any. Is that true?
Yes, that's true.
Is it true that when we spoke today to the food bank that she told us that some of the people, believe it or not, that were illegals and had come over expressed dissatisfaction with the food? Is that true?
Yes,
I'm not making this stuff up.
Yes,
right?
Mr. Van
I'm
Drew,
so tired and worn out of it, and so are you. We're tired of it. $26 million you're in the hole, right? Who's going to pay for that? I'm looking at you. Americans. So it is time to change. It is time we had a real secretary that did a real job. It's time we had, I'm sorry, a real president. And it's time we have congressmen. Guess what? These guys would go into any meeting, no matter how much of a disadvantage you think you are, to really talk the issues. When you believe in something, when it's in your heart, when you know it's right, you're going to stand up and you're going to fight for it. They can't, because you know what they know? At the end of the day, they're hurting our American people, and they're hurting America, and it has to come to an end. I thank you guys so much for what you did. And Sheriff, thank you for what you do. I know you guys put your lives on the line all the time. People are dying. People are getting hurt. This isn't just some imaginary thing like we're saying. Damn it, I hope we have those impeachment hearings. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you.
Yeah, gentleman from Alabama is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, in Alabama recently, I was told that in Birmingham, we seized enough fentanyl to kill every man, woman, and child in my entire state. And so I tell everybody this may be affecting border communities, but it's a crisis for our entire nation. And so we're going to try to address it. And Sheriff, this is my third trip down, and so I want to talk a little bit, some things that just kind of stuck out when I was asking the agents along the border that kind of concerned me, and really kind of, as I talk about it, it's something that kind of, it strikes a chord with a lot of people. But you were saying earlier that the price that you're seeing now to come across the southern border, it's ranging from $6,000 to $15,000. Is that correct?
In Yuma County, yes, sir.
Now, who's getting that money, Sheriff?
The cartels.
The cartels. So when I was a few years ago, of course, we talk about inflation, the money we print, everything's gone up. But a few years ago, I heard it was $4,000 just south of the southern border, and then the Triangle Nations further south. We had a price for Syria of up to $20,000. Are y'all seeing some high prices from other countries around the globe as well?
That's my understanding, yes, sir. When you're looking at Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, Russia has been an increase where I think Border Patrol, roughly 70 a day was a number that they were encountering just from Russia.
What's the price on a Russian now coming across the border?
I would think that it would be that much, yes, sir.
I would imagine. I don't know. I haven't heard the Russian price. We actually seized some Chinese nationals, the Sheriff's Department in Texas, and it was $80,000 each. Folks, they're not coming here to do us any favors, just so you know. No. But Sheriff, my question now, you said that, so we got a price. What about if somebody, have you guys heard, and maybe other law enforcement officers would know too, what if they don't have the money to pay the cartel? What are the options then?
So the option is that it's indentured servitude, slavery. They're going to be sent to a certain location, and I found pieces of paper down on the border that list the location that they are to go to, and that's where they will work off their debt, depending on what you're capable of doing.
Wait now, Sheriff. So you're telling me that Biden's policies on the southern border are actually creating American or slaves from around the globe? Is that correct?
Correct.
Wow. So the Democrats who accuse us of all the awful things that we do, they're actually enforcing policies now that are creating slaves in this country.
It's lending to that right now.
So not only are they creating slaves, but I also heard, and this I found this rather intriguing when I was on the border, if somebody was coming across the border and they actually didn't have the money and they didn't want to be an indentured servant, is it true that they can backpack now heroin, fentanyl, and cocaine and pay that passage? Is that an option as well?
That is an option.
So the Democrats' policies, two things now. So they're creating slaves and drug mules. Is that where we're going with this? No wonder they don't want to come talk about it, right? So we, now that we've got this issue of slaves and drug mules, I want to change over a little something I saw. And you guys, this is troubling to me. Is I went to Fort Bliss, the Emergency Intake Center. You guys heard of this? Fort Bliss, to handle all the unaccompanied minors coming to this country. And as I was there, the admiral's running it, and I'm like, sir, why don't we send these kids, these are unaccompanied minors now, back to their home country, back to their town? And the admiral said, well, they don't know where they came from. So these kids were from, I saw one, I know he's probably no more than 5. And I saw some probably, the average was 16, 17-year-olds. So they're saying these kids, these unaccompanied minors, do not know where they came from. I said, well, where are we going to send them to? Oh, we're going to send them to a Google address in the United States of America. Then we don't background check the people we're sending them to. So one of my friends here, I remember earlier, hit on this. We are actually, with taxpayer dollars, are now trafficking children, and we're paying to get them there on American taxpayer dollars and put them in God knows what and God knows where. And so the thing that really, I think Andy Biggs has mentioned this, Rep. Biggs, is, y'all, we've lost 20,000 children. Mayorkas said himself in a hearing he does not know where 20,000 of these children are. And that's just staggering to me. So Sheriff, have you, as you begin, is it mostly heroin and cocaine now and fentanyl, or is it just mostly fentanyl?
Unfortunately for Arizona and California right now, we're the worst and the top as far as fentanyl, and below that is methamphetamine. And to address your other comment, what you're looking at is a ploy by the cartels marketing a way to work with Mayorkas on the reunification policy that he put into place. So if you send your child across as a child that's by themselves, then you can be reunified when you come at a later date and time. So the cartels are exploiting every policy that this administration has put into play.
And it's almost like they're better at the game than we are, right? I mean, they know before we know what's happening. I know that they're talking about the new rules that the Biden administration wants to enforce, and basically that just adds another step. But my understanding last night, I was talking to one of the border agents, is once the illegals, when they cross into the country, they want that MTA, that motion to appear in court. Is that correct? Now, Mr. Lyons, could you tell me for sure, when they get this MTA, does that automatically qualify them for benefits?
Yes, it does.
So you're telling me they come into the country, they turn themselves in, and then they get the MTA, and they are qualified for benefits from the American taxpayer?
Yes, sir.
Do we have any idea how much those benefits run, or any idea? Have you heard that, Mr. Lyons?
Up to $800 a month.
$800 a month. And so I understand, too, we give them a cell phone.
Yes, we do.
Have y'all heard that we actually give them a cell phone? My kids would probably rather come across the border, honestly, sometimes.
Yes, sir.
So we give them a cell phone that they can jailbreak and use it however they want. My understanding. Go ahead, Lyons. I'm waiting. I want to hear what you got to say.
Well, it was just they give them that phone so that they know where they're at. But we have a 95% failure rate to appear for those motions.
So you mean they take our phones, but they don't take our phone calls? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, sir. Yes, it's the worst state.
Man, that does sound like my kids. Now, Doc, one last thing, and then we'll get off, and I'll give Mr. Jordan. I didn't have a time over here, Jim. Am I over time?
You're definitely
The
over
benefits
time.
continue,
I'm
Mr.
definitely
Moore.
over time.
But the benefits continue.
The chairman says I'm definitely over time.
You
so
can
Doc,
ask your last question.
Last question, Doc. So 100% of the immigrants, when you deliver the children, you have to give them car seats, I understand. So because the federal government requires you, isn't there some rule that says you can't send a child away from hospital without a car seat?
Correct. CMS rule, we cannot do that.
So we're buying all the car seats as we send them on the way and paying for all the health care, and you're $26 million in debt, basically.
Correct.
Very good. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank the gentleman. Gentleman from Texas is recognized for 5 minutes. Mr. Nels.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank Dr. Trenchell and Mr. Lyons for your leadership in this community. You're doing a great job going to visit that hospital. My oldest daughter just graduated from Texas Tech. She's now a NICU nurse in Houston, Texas. You guys are doing a great job over there. Of course, Sheriff Wilmot, it's good to see you. I see Sheriff Lamb there and all the other sheriffs. Thank you all for your service. Some of you know that I served in law enforcement for 30 years. I was a sheriff in Fort Bend County, Texas for 8 years before I decided to run for the swamp. I will never forget where I came from. I am with you. I support the thin blue line. So, Sheriff Wilmot, in our first hearing, we had a hearing a couple weeks ago. Some of my colleagues mentioned on the Biden border crisis. We had a Democrat witness there. He was the El Paso County judge, and he testified, and I quote, "There is no invasion of migrants in our community, nor are there hordes of undocumented immigrants committing crimes against citizens or causing havoc in our community," end quote. I was able to quickly discredit his testimony by producing numerous articles of crime in his community as a result of this invasion. And then I also did a quick search, Sheriff, of crime here in Yuma. I point out one here, a former gang member arrested by border agents in Yuma. This guy was a gang member, convicted felon, been arrested by border agents in Yuma. An illegal immigrant was arrested for entering U.S. from Mexico. He's 25 years old, was convicted of assault with a deadly weapon in Santa Barbara, California. Served 3 years now. Served 3 years in prison, which was enhanced for being a criminal street gang. After completing his sentence, he was removed from the U.S., and he will be prosecuted for re-entry. So this guy's coming back. No problem. He can just come back. I highlight this guy here. He's the alleged migrant killer arrested after a 4-month run. Sheriff, you mentioned this guy in some of your testimony. He killed, I guess, somebody on his way up here. Folks, you don't want this guy to be your neighbor. You don't want this guy in your neighborhood at all. Just another guy, and this was here on January 17th of 2023. You arrested him 4 months later at the Yuma County Detention Facility for second-degree murder after having been arrested by border agents for trying to come back into the U.S. This child molester here, he was caught hiding in the brush. Again, February 17, 2022. He was a child abuser, convicted child abuser from Honduras. You arrested him, took him to Yuma here for processing, looked at his record, Montgomery County, Maryland Circuit, convicted Vargas in December of 2009. First and second degree child abuse of fracturing the skull of a newborn while babysitting for his girlfriend. He got 7 years, served 7 of the 25 years in Maryland before being placed on supervisory probation, removed to Honduras in 2018, and now here he is coming back. And this just goes on and on. 1,400 border crossers charged with coming back, re-entry. It just goes on. Sheriff, I want to ask you the same question I asked our former witness. Are the aliens crossing illegally, committing crimes across this country?
Absolutely.
Joe Biden, are you listening? Mayorkas, are you listening to the sheriffs?
No, they are not.
Sheriff, you have, in some of your written testimony, in some of your written testimony, Sheriff, you talk a little bit about the rise in crime due to Biden's border crisis. How has it impacted your agency with response times and resources? I mean, my guys were chasing criminals all over my county and the whole southwest Houston area. How has it affected your ability to keep these people in your community safe?
Thank you for the question, sir. In regards to our response times, when we have to respond out and do a rescue out in the desert, which is about 40, 50 miles away from civilization, that ties up our resources from doing their normal service delivery to the community that we serve. When we're processing the crime scenes out in the desert, when we're investigating the calls of the thefts, the burglaries, the rapes, the delayed rapes and robberies that happen to some of the immigrants coming to the border that we have to handle, it taxes your resources and otherwise takes away our ability to do the proactive enforcement versus reactive.
And what we all know in this room, what we all have witnessed under former President Donald J. Trump, the greatest president in my lifetime, that border crossings were down, yes. Border crossings were down, and our country was proud to uphold the rule of law. When you look at our United States Constitution, and you see that it's the federal government's responsibility to secure our southern borders. We could talk about it. I sent a letter to Biden calling him to invoke that guarantee clause. And if you don't understand, if you look at Article 4, Section 4, there's an invasion clause, folks, and I'll just read for the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republic form of government and shall protect each of them against invasion. We are being invaded, yes? Article 1, Section 10, State Self-Defense Clause, reserves to the states the sovereign power to repeal an invasion and defend their citizenry from the overwhelming and imminent danger. Your Attorney General is doing a hell of a job. Our Attorney General is doing well as well in Texas, trying to invoke that. But let's just say this. The American people are the victims here. We are the victims. We must take the fight to the cartels, to the enemy, and we must use extreme prejudice to eliminate them off the face of the earth. I yield back.
Gentleman from South Carolina is recognized. Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's good to be here. I appreciate you, Chairman, holding this hearing right here at the center of our border crisis. To the good people of Yuma, thank you for having us. Thank you for showing us. I'm a freshman, so this has been incredibly eye-opening for me. You know, Mr. Chairman, I remember my first committee hearing this year, first one ever, when the ranking member said that we were imagining a border crisis. My first question to the good people of Yuma, are you imagining a border crisis? Is the border secure here in Yuma? Has the border gotten worse under President Biden? And final question, do you think this administration has faithfully executed their obligation to secure that border? No. We got a hell no. Thank you to the panel. From the short time we've been here in Yuma, one thing is very crystal clear to me, and is that President Biden's open door, open border policy is an abject failure to the people of this country. We have seen firsthand the prioritization by this administration of illegal immigrants over the people of America. Illegal immigration, obviously, you know this here in Yuma more than anyone else. It deprives your community of safety in your homes and in your community, of health care, it costs the taxpayers billions of dollars. It destroys property farmers where you at, and it destroys families through fentanyl poisoning. Congressional Democrats should be here, Mr. Chairman. It's actually a shame that we were imagining a border crisis, but everything that we've seen thus far proves exactly that we are not, that you see it. And of course, in my home state of South Carolina, as has been talked about, we are a border state. Myrtle Beach is not just famous for its beaches and Chinese spy balloons. It also has record fentanyl overdoses that happen year after year. The first question to the sheriff, what federal policies were in place under the prior administration that really helped, in your opinion, secure that border?
You know, and I thank you for that question, because I also told Secretary Mayorkas the same thing. The Operation Streamline and that was 100% prosecution for anybody that entered this country between a port of entry and denied them the access.
Would you say that the Biden administration has been able to control the cartels in 2 years?
No, sir.
What policies do you think promote or enable the cartels to act more freely across the border or even in our country?
Well, when they removed the migrant protection protocols that were put into place, plus Operation Streamline, and they got away from any kind of prosecution at all, that just enabled the cartels to do what they're doing today, and they continue to escalate in their capabilities.
Mr. Lyons, you tweeted back in January that the border was 100% not secure, that it was wide open. Do you believe that still to be the case?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And in both you and the sheriff's experience, what are you seeing from real-world impacts that you're hearing from people out here in the community that are happening from a crime perspective or a cartel perspective in their homes or neighborhoods?
We've had some home invasions. Those were few and far between just because Border Patrol has been able to interdict. Yesterday morning, one of the farmers you heard from this morning testified that his daughter was returning home from feeding her 4-H project and was almost hit by a van full of people being smuggled across the border. So we continue to see those types of instances. He's had 2 of those experiences in the last 6 months. One of the things that I apologize, but I should have addressed when Mr. Klein asked, but it's been a negative impact in our community, is the ability of 911 services to respond adequately. And that's been a severe challenge. I met with the first responders from every group in Yuma, and they shared with me their concern or the ability to be able to respond when they continue to receive a high volume of 911 calls from the border. Now, not all of those people were actually looking for medical assistance. They were simply tired of waiting to be processed because they had somewhere to go and someplace to be. So that has affected the people of this community. And I was absolutely blown away to hear them tell me that. They do not care about the value of life, and that is something directly related to the cartels.
Sheriff, what instances have you heard from the residents here in Yuma of crime or cartel activity? Talk about that. Have you heard these similar instances?
Absolutely, sir, and you can refer to my document that I submitted as well. My jail already this last year had over 55 individuals booked into custody that had entered this country illegally and committed sexploitation of minors, the trespassing, the smuggling of narcotics, not only for use but for sale and trade. That's the majority of what I have in my jail right now for those kind of offenses.
Mr. Fry, over at Amberley's place, our youngest victim coming in for a sexual assault was 10 years old. The challenge is that we don't know in which country it occurred and by whom. So we're able to collect the data, but because of jurisdictional challenges, there's no one to prosecute. So a 10-year-old was violated by someone under cartel control or by the cartel itself. And just here at Morales Dam, Congressman Biggs and I have had the opportunity to walk around and pick up Plan B, and that was an area commonly referred to as the rape tree. So many people coming across were victims of the cartel where they exacted that last price and denied them their dignity.
Thank you to the panel for being here. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.